Liberty in America is under assault. We no longer live in a reality that includes property rights. We're no longer the kings of our own castle. We no longer enjoy the true benefits of capitalism. Instead, we're negotiating our rights with our own government. This isn't how our country was founded. These aren't the ideas of our founders. It's time to seize back our country. This is the Liberty Hour, where these important issues will be discussed for the sake of America's future. With a cigar in one hand and a copy of the Constitution in the other, here's your host, Sean Thompson.
This is the Liberty Hour podcast, produced by Genius, although he may be wearing leotards. And I have to tell him, and the rest of you, I've done something today I haven't done since my honeymoon. You remember your honeymoon, right? You're all torqued up, all crazy about each other. You get back in here, kid. I slept until 7:55. I honestly, I don't remember when I did that. And the reason is, couldn't sleep. Couldn't sleep. So aggravated about this police state, this corrupt socialist enclave called Illinois. It's infuriating to me that government at a whim can increase anything it wants, can pick one section of citizens over another section. In this case, it's the corrupt employee of the state. Same as it was in the Soviet Union. Same as it is right now in Venezuela, Cuba, and all the rest of the communist enclaves around the world. All for the greater good, all for the virtuous. Roads and bridges. Roads and bridges. They don't want you to know. It goes to the same 5 scumbag companies that kick the 30% of their revenue back to the fat slobs of various parties. Yeah, it's the Republicans, too. So, it's 11, 12 last night. I'm all stressed out. I go out to the garage. I got a few weights in there. I start throwing them around. Get all aggravated, come back in. It's 2 o'clock, and I'm looking at all of the information, and they replay Channel 7 News. I used to like Channel 7 News. Cheryl Burton is a talking mannequin, right? I get it. I understand it. But if I'm going to get bad news, I'd like it to be from somebody that could be working at Heavenly Bodies. I'm fine with that. I don't mind implants. I could play along, right? The Botox all in their face. But at the moment, she tells us about the various 30 different degrees of Illinois taxation. She smiles and smirks like it's a frickin' joke. Now, I realize when you just stand there and do what you do for free because you want the attention, dimwit, you don't mind if you lose some of your pay. You probably got some sugar daddy floating the bills you can't make or whatever it is you want. I get it. But to the rest of us, work 3 jobs, stress out, trapped here because of family and love. I mean, I leave, I got half my family here. I got to come back every week, miss the kids, the whole 9 yards. You directly take the money out of their mouths. Directly take the money out of their mouths. And I have to have these arguments back and forth with the delusional Illinoisan from time to time. The ones that don't listen to the Liberty Hour on 560 AM. By the way, if you care to participate, 312-642-5600. So this kind of an abuse of both my rights, the principles of America, the founding of what we are. On this particular week, I find the hypocrisy unbearable. Unbearable. The biggest problem we have in this country is that the people who celebrate it have no idea what they're celebrating is the exact opposite of what it is. And they wrap the flag around their head like a couple of Hell's Angels going down the highway, and they think they're patriots. When the reality is we're not half of the men that found the country. We're not half of our grandfathers. As we sit here, woe is me. What can I do? I don't know. It's terrible. Got to increase the cost. Got to pay the pensions. All the stupid things you tell yourself as you watch these frauds parade around, picking and choosing and hoping they don't call your number. And here we are on the 4th of July weekend. So I tweet that last night. Those of you stuck in Illinois for love and affection or any other scam that you're here for or any other penalty, at least have the dignity to realize you have no business celebrating Independence Day of all things. Independence Day. And you walk around, yeah, it's America, land of the free, home of the brave. Are you out of your mind? Are you so detached from reality that you lull yourself to sleep with some sort of lullaby, counting different ways in which you're a slave, and somehow that makes you go to sleep? Because I can't sleep anymore. Make no mistake about it. And it is directly because of the stupidity and the lies and the con. And yes, it has to do with the fact that knowledge is upsetting and ignorance is bliss. Because if you don't know that Bill Brady and his wife are ghetto game casino moguls, if you don't know that Durkin, the Republican head of whatever he is, with his 3 Twitter followers, him and his sister and the dimwit who answers his phone, all retweeting his stuff every 8 months when he communicates with the people. If you don't understand the scam, then I guess you could wave the flag, go out to the parade, and clap as the scoundrels, as the wannabe gangsters, too much of a pansy to actually be a gangster, implement laws and extortion tactics. Then go ahead, have a good week, dummy. But to me, it's sickening. And it's for little reasons like this.
Unfortunately, it will be a price that is added on to our clients and so forth for out-of-town ventures and so forth for jobs.
They're adding it on no matter where you are. If you're a Chicago company, pay the tax. 3 times transfer stamps for non-residents. They left that law so full of ambiguity, you're not even sure. So how do we identify if I sell my Illinois property and I don't buy another one? I just pay 3%? Doesn't matter. Because that's what socialism, that's the Chicago way. That's Illinois extortion is. Because if you got a guy, right? If Dick Mell or any one of his descendants are left over and you drop an envelope, well, then you're in. Then you don't pay the 3%. But for the poor pigeon out there working every other day like me, you pay it. Because I'll be goddamned if I'm going to give anybody an envelope to alleviate taxes. It's sickening to me. You buy into this Soviet system. You walk around and pretend it's Illinois. You're bailing out the pensions. Bailing out the pensions. Got to do roads and bridges.
It's just ridiculous. You shouldn't be paying that much for gas.
They made it up. They doubled the tax. And dimwits like Cheryl Burton, with her implants and her chubby face because of the Botox, she's smiling. At least I think it was a smile. I don't know how that shit works, if you can still smile or not. I don't know.
We're creating a lot of jobs all across the state of Illinois. We're putting a lot of people to work. We're also attracting jobs from businesses that will want to be here because of the upgraded infrastructure.
Now, I would say, normally, when I play that clip, how stupid do you have to be to buy a word that comes out of that hamburglar's mouth? But obviously, if you're stupid enough to believe that, you could go work for ABC or NBC or CBS or CLTV or any of the other dim-witted shows. Because the idea that it isn't combated by the very people we entrust to investigate, to report, to inform, shows you that they're nothing more but puppets. Only instead of a puppeteer, it's a politician with his hand up their ass telling them what to say and how to say it. It's ridiculous. What do you mean you're creating jobs? At what cost? You haven't created one job. All you've done is extort one group of people to benefit the other. And the other will vote for you, will support you, will extort for you. The other is a foot soldier of tyranny. That's what a government employee is. Government's job is to be frugal and get us, the people, the most value for our money. Period. End of story. The idea that they pay the most, as if these services were from Louis Vuitton, shows you how the scam works. That's why the city of Chicago worker is a freaking Democrat. Where is the enclave of Chicago workers that make up the Republican Party? Anybody? Anybody? How about these little municipalities? These little mobbed up scumbag ones, like the one I live in, Elmwood Park, where the trustees own the video games too. Scumbags that they are. Now you go to the parade and you clap. Look, there's Pete Silvestri with the wig on, the agent of Gold Rush Gaming, shaking and twitching. Forest Preserve Pete. There he is. Let's celebrate him. Oh, look, there's the trustee who's opening up the game room down North Avenue. Yay, yay. Oh, maybe Bill Brady will show up. Him and his wife, 16 game rooms, pot dispensaries to the brothers and the cousins and the Joe Materazzi. Yay! It's all great, right? Illinois citizen. I'm an American. Land of the free, home of the brave. Like a real numbskull. Real numbskull. It's ridiculous to me. Ridiculous.
Prices may be going up, but it doesn't compare to the sticker shock that we saw in 2012 when Chicago's average was $4.52.
Yeah, congratulations. Illinois is all like Chicago now. And the reason what he doesn't tell you is at that time there was an oil problem. You got this increase now, kids. Oil is manipulated and contorted and regulated, and that everybody makes sure that the Saudis are paid and the distributors. It's irrelevant of the supply versus the demand. It's irrelevant of the oil finds. It's irrelevant that America is now producing twice what it was during September 11th. It's all irrelevant. So you're lulled to sleep because it's only 19 cents. Only 19 cents. That is going to happen in all of the other. There has been at least 25 different increases. All about consumption and cost. All to benefit the new Illinois employee or contractor. Because government doesn't only not do what it was supposed to do as it was created in America. It corrupts. It extorts. It picks winners and losers. It penalizes those not benefiting in the name of the virtuous state employee, which means it's a statist organization. The government is the god. That is the exact opposite of a country that was found by those who actually were anarchists to tyranny, who implemented certain guarantees and laws based on principles of true equality, not the equality of outcome where I pretend a 450-pound sloth who's done nothing but wait for the cheese to come in every month is somehow equal to the guy who's got 4 jobs. No, not that kind of equality, not the Chicago Democrat equality where you parade around simpletons, where all of a sudden I got to see Illinois, Chicago public school teachers with that Sharkey, that he is the actual Marxist, actually founded in Marxist organizations he's a member of, come out and threaten to strike. You've been on summer break for what, 8 days? Because, they turned in our public school system into a daycare for dimwits. And you can't even draw. A cartoonist couldn't draw the cast of characters with the love handles on their earlobes, just all stuffed around the podium, threatening to do what exactly? Not corrupt our kids? Good. And government will turn up the screws. And you got to pay fair, equal wage. There's not 50% of you that will ever see the money a public school teacher sees. And there's about 10% of you that will only see the retirement they see. The other 90%, you're going to just fund it, stupid. And you're going to get to work and you're going to shut your mouth about doing it. That's not America, by the way. That's what we threw off. That has nothing to do with America. That's why during these tumultuous times in this election season, you want to talk about specific issues? Oh, Bernie Sanders raised $18 million in the second quarter. Sure, because they're self-loathing frauds, trust fund babies, and those who feel they benefit from socialism. That's a lot of them, and they give them the money, and they give the other Democrats the money. And then there's the companies that don't want to be extorted, that figure it's better to pay now than be an enemy later, like in Illinois, right? If you're an actual business in Illinois, and say you're not a scumbag, wannabe gangster Democrat, but you're in one of these neighborhoods, what are you going to do? You're going to not drop the envelope to the mayor or to the trustee? You're going to not hire his barely literate nephew to sit in a corner with a fork on, hope he doesn't poke his eye out and sue you? See, that's the real world. That's how it works. And the problem is, instead of it getting better, instead of people realizing what's happening, it's getting drastically worse. All in the name of the pensions.
The reason we haven't solved the pension problem is because of political will.
That's not true. That's little Lori Lightfoot in Rahm Emanuel's sport coat. Not true. The reason you have a pension problem is the money-bundling scumbag who donates to you and overcharges the city knew it was a lie when he sold it to you. Mathematical impossibility is the true definition of what these payoff schemes are. It doesn't matter what the market does. It doesn't matter who funds it. Stop regurgitating talking points but having no idea. It's like the guy in Illinois who puts the American flag out and waves it. You're not what you say you are, or you're too stupid to know it. Here's who the real gods among men are. Here's who your taxes on your gas, on your electric, and whatever other everything they spot will increase in perpetuity to pay forever, because they don't want you to know what a scam it is.
Let me be clear. We're not looking at a general expansion of a service tax. What we're looking at is a targeted at kind of higher-end professional services like the law firm that I left, accounting services. We're not looking at expanding service tax on mom-and-pop companies. But that is an option.
Expanding on mom-and-pop organizations, right? This is the government that's supposed to stoke business. This is the government that's supposed to secure your rights. Why do you think they're attacking the lawyers? You think it's just do they not know that the lawyers will pack up and go move somewhere else? I'm a stupid real estate broker. I did it. Do you not think an attorney can figure it out? It's ridiculous. And you wave the flag. Equality for none. Just keep saying all. Because what they're telling you in this little speech and what they're guaranteeing you is that you are going to be a victim of a state worker. You. See, they can't tax each other. Even they know that. Even they know it doesn't matter if you increase the taxes on the state worker. That's funny money anyway. So they have to tax the non-state worker. They have to tax the non-recipient of the contract because they realize the snake can only eat its tail till it dies. No matter how much it acts like it's full. It's never really full. All in the name of a scheme you didn't cut, you would never have approved of. And now you're the victim of their whim. That's what you are.
There's no part of the conversation that's being left out. I mean, we have state pension challenges that we have to meet. We have, obviously, City of Chicago has its pension challenges, and we have those many fire and police municipal pension systems. So we're looking at all of it.
They're not problems. They're scams that they have to fund. The Ponzi scheme based on didn't work. And if you could even con yourself into saying it did, it only worked for a very short period of time. You know, this is unbelievable to me, the ignorance of the... do me a favor. When you're driving past the gas station, count the cars. Count the cars and just use the word, just use the number 10 because I don't want to make it too complicated. 10 gallons. 10 gallons and everybody else is paying an extra $2. Every single person, every airline, everything that uses gas, UPS truck, FedEx truck, every Toronto bread truck, everybody, $2. How much do you think that is at the end of the week? And where does it go? Into the general fund. It doesn't go directly to these pensions. And how did they pass it? Because they took your local state rep. I think mine is Kathleen Willis. And if you've ever seen this fat slob, it looks like she works out with JB every day. Kathleen Willis, and they gave her $2.5 million to go play around with. Now, what do you think she's going to do? How many planters do you think she's going to put up? None. They launder the money. They hire phony baloney relatives with front companies that sound like they actually produce something. Cleaning things, maintaining things, and they just enrich the very corrupt. And that's to the point where in Illinois, it's over with. There are more corrupt than non-corrupt. Period. All you need to do is focus on your own municipality. Your own municipality. Now, as you can imagine, my opinion doesn't make me very popular in the municipality, but I'll tell you what. You got one life to live, and you can live it with dignity, and you can live it with principles, or you can con yourself to sleep. I'd rather stay up. That's just me. I'm silly that way. So I had the kid in there do something. It's probably not good radio. Probably doesn't make for good radio. I don't care. It's a podcast anyway. Anyway, I had him load the Declaration of Independence. See, because that's what you're celebrating. The only problem is there's very few that have a concept of what it is. And there's even fewer that would implement what it took to become independent. Because we're surrounded by cowards who like to stand in a line and pretend that they're men, pretend that they're Americans, when the fact is they just want in on the scam. So bear with me. I'll stop it from time to time. But this is what you're supposed to be celebrating. Now think as an Illinoisan what you're really celebrating.
In Congress, July 4th, 1776, the unanimous declaration of the 13 United States of America. When in the course of human events it becomes necessary for one people to dissolve the political bands which have connected them with another, and to assume among the powers of the earth the separate and equal station to which the laws of nature and of nature's God entitle them, a decent respect to the opinions of mankind requires that they should declare the causes which impel them to the separation. We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal, that they are endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights, that among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness.
Now, I want you to I'm going to stop it from time to time because it's 9 minutes. I want you to just think about that. I have an unalienable right, and so does the worker they use against me. But is that how it really works in Illinois? I don't have an unalienable right. I am at your whim, and you can use the worker as a weapon against me. You can use your corruption and your failure and your inadequacies as a weapon against me. Life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. That covers a lot of territory, baby. And just something as essential as the fuel tax. I need it for my life. It's how I make my living. I need it for my liberty. I like to go for a ride here and there. I need it for my pursuit of happiness. Yet you can tax it at every level, whether it's consumption, whether it's necessity, whether it's enjoyment. It is for a whim. And here's the other thing. They immunize themselves. None of the workers pay for the gas. None of them. The majority of the workers have gas cards. They're not they don't monitor those. We don't even know. I'll never forget this when Bruce Rauner was running. How many cars does Illinois have? You can't get an answer. How many gallons of gas does Illinois buy for workers? Can't get an answer. How much of it is scammed? Well, you certainly can't get an answer. Let alone the pension issue. You gave them a mathematical impossibility scheme. You use it as a weapon against us without the scheme. So we're not equal. We're not equal at all in Illinois. You're not even close to equal. And I got news for you, kids. This is a broader point. This even goes so much as to the federal level. Mike, go ahead, kid. Lock him in. You put him in. Mike, thank you for calling the show. How are you? Mike?
Hey, Sean, what's going on, man?
Not much, bro.
Hey, one thing I noticed, whenever you let these Democrat Politburos take over your state, they have to create a task force for every single liberal grievance. Yesterday, Pritzker announced he's creating a task force for transgender online bullying. And just last week, my Congresswoman, Nurse Underfraud, out here in the 14th, she announced that she's part of a gun violence prevention task force. Everything requires a task force now. They should create a whole department of task forces.
The reason is it works, Mike. It works. So in other words, all that they get to do is pick. They are gods. This is what a statist government looks like. They are gods among us. And you better hope, Mike, that you didn't send a tweet where you made fun of Michelle Obama and the fact that I've never seen her and Patrick Ewing in the same room. You better not do that because you could be guilty of bullying. You see, it's all about what they want it to be. See, because the freedom of speech and all of the things this will name, all of the things we are guaranteed and all of the reasons we were created, they can be chipped away by using the useful idiot against us, by picking who is more virtuous. We are so unmoored from the principles of the men that found this country. We do not deserve to celebrate Independence Day in Illinois. I'm not kidding you. I am not kidding you. We are living on the same week as we celebrate Independence Day, massive atrocities against the citizenry of Illinois have been committed by the government. So you're not free. And what you're telling me, there's just more bureaucracy, more nonsense that they can create on a whim in which to pick winners over losers. By the way, I didn't hang up on Mike. There was the kid in the other room, but that's all right. His pants are tight because he wants to go on with the declaration. Mike, thank you so much for calling the show. I truly appreciate it. But I want you to hear the concept, the principle, the intent from what we're supposed to be celebrating and the reality of where we live and what we live in. And this is not just Illinois. I want you to listen very closely.
That to secure these rights, governments are instituted among men deriving their just powers from the consent of the governed. That whenever any form of government becomes destructive of these ends, It is the right of the people to alter or to abolish it, and to institute new government, laying its foundation on such principles and organizing its powers in such forms as to them shall seem most likely to affect their safety and happiness.
Now, what does that look like in Illinois? Because you realize the amount of people that actually voted for Pritzker? He won the conglomerate, the welfare. He won the welfare vote of Cook County. He won the disgruntled dimwit vote of DuPage County. And that's about it. What did he win, 2 or 3 counties? The rest of us are just subjugated to this nonsense. Now, I say, I don't want the government anymore. Well, how's this look like? What is this? How can I do what they're telling me to do? There's only one way to do it. And obviously you won't do it. So what do we have to do? This is one big advertisement that if you believe in these principles, if you truly celebrate what Americanism is, you cannot live under this tyranny. You have to leave.
Indeed will dictate that governments long established should not be changed for light and transient causes. And accordingly, all experience hath shown that mankind are more disposed to suffer while evils are sufferable than to right themselves by abolishing the forms to which they are accustomed.
You understand what he just said? It's easy for you to walk around and say, what can I do? They raised the taxes because it's sufferable. It's comfortable. You're okay with the level. Whether you're offended by it or not, you're okay. But the principle of how they can pick and choose to do this, we've lost the argument. We are merely victims of their circumstance. And this is how you know in Illinois you're not a citizen, you're a slave. Or you're in on the scam and you work for the taskmaster. And then it benefits you. That's why mum's the word among all the recipients of the government cheese. And that includes pensioners, because you didn't work for it. No, you didn't. You knew it was a scam. You knew it wasn't going to mathematically work, and you didn't care because you knew this was the outcome, and you cheered it. And then you know what you also know? Once you're on the cheese, you can pack up and leave, kid, and you're still going to get that government cheese.
But when a long train of abuses and usurpations pursuing invariably the same object evinces a design to reduce them under absolute despotism, it is their right, it is their duty to throw off such government and to provide new guards for their future security. Such has been the patient sufferance of these colonies, and such is now the necessity which constrains them to alter their former systems of government. The history of the present King of Great Britain is a history of repeated injuries and usurpations, all having in direct object the establishment of an absolute tyranny over these states. To prove this, let facts be submitted to a candid world.
This is important.
He has refused his assent to laws, the most wholesome and necessary for the public good. He has forbidden his governors to pass laws of immediate and pressing importance unless suspended in their operation till his assent should be obtained. And when so suspended, he has utterly neglected to attend to them.
There's something about a law that you need to keep in mind. It is never to be a weapon, because that's just the passive version of tyranny. A law is a shield. It is to shield me against tyranny. It is to shield me against usurpations of my freedoms. Where is that law in Illinois that's created to do so? Every single law is created as a weapon to be used against me and my property, to pick a winner over loser, to guarantee injustice in the name of justice. It is the exact opposite of what the founding of this country is.
He has refused to pass other laws for the accommodation of large districts of people, unless those people would relinquish the right of representation in the legislature, a right inestimable to them and formidable to tyrants only.
So when you pay off the representatives, when you cut them in on your schemes, when Republicans own the same gambling casinos at favoritism, they don't own them because they started them like regular people. They own them because they had the inside track and the pot dispensaries, and their brothers are lobbyists, and they have corruption via proxy. I don't have representation. You don't have representation. Those are crime family organizations. That's what exists here. There are no Republicans or Democrats. There are crime family organizations. Now, some have a better cut of suit. We call those Republicans. The other ones are practicing the exact same abuses. That's why you have the heads of the families, the Burks and the Mells and the Dailies. And on the Republican side, the Bradys and the Durkins. And if you think I'm wrong, investigate their money. Investigate their family. The idea that we sit idly by and you pretend you have representation, and the fact of the matter of how these abuses were passed on the on the Illinois citizen shows you have no representation.
He has called together legislative bodies at places unusual, uncomfortable, and distant from the depository of their public records for the sole purpose of fatiguing them into compliance with his measures. He has dissolved representative houses repeatedly for opposing with manly firmness his invasions on the rights of the people. He has refused for a long time after such dissolutions to cause others to be elected, whereby the legislative powers, incapable of annihilation, have returned to the people at large for their exercise, the state remaining in the meantime exposed to all the dangers of invasion from without and convulsions within. He has endeavored to prevent the population of these states, for that purpose obstructing the laws of naturalization of foreigners, refusing to pass others to encourage their migrations hither, and raising the conditions of new appropriations of lands. He has obstructed the administration of justice by refusing his assent to laws for establishing judiciary powers. He has made judges dependent on his will alone for the tenure of their offices and the amount and payment of their salaries. He has erected a multitude of new offices.
Why do we appoint judges? You ever wonder that? Why are there so many judges, all from the same political party, all appointed? Because the fix is in. Just as it was back then. The fix is in. And the idea that arbitrarily transfer stamps of real estate can be increased threefold, times 3, if you do not reside in a state, is a penalty that the government does not have the power to implement. It is an act of tyranny. It is an act of extortion. It is an act in violation of the civil liberties of the Illinoisan. And it is outrageous. And mum's the word. As Cheryl Burton and her floaties smile as they give you the news.
And sent hither swarms of officers to harass our people and eat out their substance. He has kept among us in times of peace standing armies without the consent of our legislatures. He has affected to render the military independent of and superior to the civil power.
Boy, it sounds
He has
familiar.
combined with others to subject us to a jurisdiction foreign to our Constitution and unacknowledged by our laws, giving his assent to their acts of pretended legislation.
Pretended.
For quartering large bodies of armed troops among us, for protecting them by a mock trial, from punishment for any murders which they should commit on the inhabitants of these states.
I have to tell you, I want to stop that just a second. I'll get back to it. But I have dear friends of mine who are policemen, fans of the show. They come in. And, you know, I was reading all of the increases in use of your cell phone and different various ways. You've taken policemen who are to serve and protect the people, and you've made them tax enforcers. And you've given them the power to pick and choose over us at what is really, in my opinion, unreasonable fees for doing things they do. How many of you have been given a ticket by a policeman on the phone or without the seatbelt? You've mounted the police against the people. They don't work for you. They work against you. Their job is to, not all of them, and I say this, I don't speak in blanket. I am telling you this law is blanket. You're trying to take good policemen and make them tax collectors because they need the money. This is the same thing the king did. He needed the money, and so does Pritzker.
For cutting off our trade with all parts of the world.
Oh, does that sound familiar?
For imposing taxes on us without our consent.
Ta-da!
For depriving us in many cases of the benefits of trial by jury. For transporting us beyond seas to be tried for pretended offenses.
What's a red light camera? What's a speeding by camera? Have you not denied me the right of trial by jury? Oh, and you make it a Rube Goldberg system where I got to send it in by a certain date. But how do this is a system that has fried me since its inception, not just because it was created by old state representatives. You know who I'm talking about, too, if you do your homework. State reps created the red light and the speed camera, and they're the lobbyists for it. That's how they passed it. And in the meantime, it is built on a system of trust of the least trustworthy organization among us, the Illinois government. So I have to trust those numbers on that picture, right? See, I'm guaranteed at least somebody to say they saw me do it. A person, not a camera. Because one thing that can be frauded, it's definitely film. It's definitely numbers. It's definitely things held by and presented by the government. All they need to do is send it to you. You're guilty until innocent. And we sit here and we just pay the fees. And they brag about how much money they make. It's something that trivial. I know, and it's so trivial. But it's about the principles of what America is. It was founded for you, the citizen. The government was never meant to be in this kind of power. And it certainly isn't meant to be able to abuse it.
Offenses. For abolishing the free system of English laws in a neighboring province, establishing therein an arbitrary government, and enlarging its boundaries so as to render it at once an example and fit instrument for introducing the same absolute rule into these colonies. For taking away our charters, abolishing our most valuable laws, and altering fundamentally the forms of our governments. For suspending our own legislators and declaring themselves invested with power to legislate for us in all cases whatsoever. He has abdicated government here by declaring us out of his protection and waging war against us. He has plundered our seas, ravaged our coasts, burnt our towns, and destroyed the lives of our people. He is at this time transporting large armies of foreign mercenaries to complete the works of death, desolation, and tyranny already begun with circumstances of cruelty and perfidy scarcely paralleled in the most barbarous ages, and totally unworthy the head of a civilized nation. He has constrained our fellow citizens taken captive on the high seas to bear arms against their country, to become the executioners of their friends and brethren, or to fall themselves by their hands. He has excited domestic insurrections among us, and has endeavored to bring on the inhabitants of our frontiers, the merciless Indian savages whose known rule of warfare is an undistinguished destruction of all ages, sexes, and conditions. In every stage of these oppressions, we have petitioned for redress in the most humble terms. Our repeated petitions have been answered only by repeated injury. A prince whose character is thus marked by every act which may define a tyrant, is unfit to be the ruler of a free people. Nor have we been wanting in attention to our British brethren. We have warned them from time to time of attempts by their legislature to extend an unwarrantable jurisdiction over us. We have reminded them of the circumstances of our emigration and settlement here. We have appealed to their native justice and magnanimity, and we have conjured them by the ties of our common kindred to disavow these usurpations, which would inevitably interrupt our connections and correspondence. They too have been deaf to the voice of justice and of consanguinity. We must, therefore, acquiesce in the necessity which denounces our separation and hold them, as we hold the rest of mankind, enemies in war, in peace friends. We, therefore, the representatives of the United States of America, in General Congress, assembled, appealing to the Supreme Judge of the world for the rectitude of our intentions, do, in the name and by the authority of the good people of these colonies, solemnly publish and declare that these united colonies are and of right ought to be free and independent states, that they are absolved from all allegiance to the British Crown, and that all political connection between them and the state of Great Britain is and ought to be totally dissolved, and that as free and independent states they have full power to levy war, conclude peace, contract alliances, establish commerce, and to do all other acts and things which independent states may of right do. And for the support of this declaration, with a firm reliance on the protection of divine providence, we mutually pledge to each other our lives, our fortunes, and our sacred honor.
Yeah, I just can't help but notice the character that we celebrate as Americans and the reality that we live in as Illinoisans. And the idea that these politicians will go around in 2 days and they will march in parades as if they agree to these principles, as if they stoke these beliefs, as if they understand the fundamentals of who they represent and what their jobs are. And as you live in the week in which they have implemented the greatest atrocity against the citizen, which is to penalize him for his very existence, reminds me of why we are America and not Great Britain West. And I think, thank God, men of that era had that character, had that knowledge, had that belief structure. Because men of this era sure don't. We're not half the men these people were. So you could go around to your barbecues and you could pretend that we're all Americans and it's great, it's the greatest place on earth. Or you could realize what we have become and how we allow ourselves to be controlled and victims of the tyranny that the true founders fought off without a peep, without a wiggle. As the Illinois Republicans are in for a penny, in for a pound. I find it's just too nauseating. It's just too nauseating for me to be all excited about the 4th of July weekend. So you know what, kid? Forget about it. I'm flying home to Florida. I'm not even going to sit here. I'm not even going to stand here anymore. My wife will be real unhappy about that, but what are you going to do? All right, now let's, listen, I got to tell you, that went longer than I anticipated, kid, although it was a long clip. I had a lot of fun doing it. I have to go open my other business because I got to pay my gas taxes. We just all had a massive increase, whether you want to realize it or not, whether you're aware it affects your cable, it affects your property rights or your real estate property taxes, whether you understand that a penny taken off your table is a penny that has to be replaced. See, the only place I practice stupid socialism is in my house. And the idea that I allowed, quietly I might add, although I put up the best fight I could, kid, anymore without going to prison, quietly that we just allowed Penny Pritzker's little baby brother, Pudgy Pritzker, to just cast upon us at whim numbers he made up, to pay off the statist, to pay off the corrupt, without any Republican doing anything other than saying, we did the best we can. Bill Brady, there's a guy I can't get out of politics fast enough. Or Durkin, another scumbag. Scumbags galore. Be suspicious of the guy who tells you he's on your team, unless you're in on it. Then just declare yourself a Democrat. But me, just not good enough for me. To me, you got to live what you preach. You got to do the uncomfortable thing. And rather than take it, it's time to vacate. And I'm telling you right now, kid, I made a prediction on Joe Walsh's show. You mark my words, I want to do it here again on the podcast for the people who didn't listen to Joe Walsh's show on Friday. 1 year from the day the taxes were implemented, which is yesterday. 1 year. Real estate property values will be down by 10%. In 18 months, Illinois will lose enough residents to lose 2 congressional seats. And you know what? Good. Good. Because the only way you're going to realize it is when you do realize you are living under a corrupt, oppressive tyranny of which there is no legitimate way to stop at this point. That as we sit idly by and it's reported as a good thing, it's touted as success, and that they keep embracing failure only in the promise to expand it, it's over with. End of story. I appreciate you listening. And by the way, Mike, I appreciate you calling. We'll be back tomorrow, 9:05 a.m. Let's call it a 4th of July extravaganza. And, maybe tomorrow, kid, we'll do the Bill of Rights. Because I don't think people understand what they are. I don't think people understand the kind of effort and the intention and the principles of why you're even celebrating. And I certainly don't realize, I don't expect they realize that at least 50% of the country is absolutely the communist they guaranteed we would not have, the socialist they guaranteed we would not be subjected to. I'm so tempted to play Ocasio-Cortez right now, but I want to end on a high note. So we'll play Ocasio and we'll play the rest later. My name's Sean Thompson. I want to thank you very much for listening to the Liberty Hour.